Hi, my name is Sean, and this is my midterm presentation for my Faith Communities course in the fall of 2011 at Clark University. As a communications major, my interests focus on the transfer of messages through mediums. Personally, I like to send texts, go on Facebook, probably far too much, and record videos to send to friends. Those are just some examples. Technology today has enriched everything I do because it enables me to communicate to a far greater audience at far faster speeds than ever before. But the thing is, I never had the experience of before. I grew up in the information age, and for a long time I didn't realize how much of a barrier this truly is, and of course I mean this for myself and my peers. How technology is changing things is only going to offer more opportunities for expression, which is something that will also help the ministry of the church. No longer is physical participation necessary for spreading the message, and this acts as a way to open the church to greater numbers and decrease the marginalization of social groups. However, I believe that there is little talk about the certain discrimination and marginalization of the elderly that will come. As we grow older and push to have more electronic communications and activities, the elderly, who were never presented with the opportunity to learn to operate these technologies, will be isolated. They won't have as many choices as more companies integrate electronic technologies, and some services may outright disappear, like maybe prescription refilling or tax filings. To speak generally at first, I believe that the transformation is already happening as the elderly become estranged from society. As Gittins mentioned in A Presence That Disturbs, the elderly will begin to feel not only to themselves but also to the rest of society that they are out of place, that what they did and how they prefer to live is no longer acceptable. There is a drive to continue to exploit the elderly through telemarketing scams, phishing scams through email, and even prescription fraud. Even just simply offering to help won't necessarily alleviate problems. Gittins lays out the problem of someone in power offering to help someone considered to be in need. This relationship between the host, in this case it would be a helper of some sort, and the stranger, which would be the elderly, is still an unequal power balance that reinforces the distance we have with our older generations. I know personally my parents and grandparents have struggled with adapting to technology. At first, instead of offering my help and trying to teach them, I became frustrated. I couldn't understand how something that seemed so easy was so difficult for them to grasp. Inner pains, in general, are problems, tragedies, and afflictions of misery that each of us uniquely face throughout life. I believe that this can be attributable to groups who have a common way of life also. Veneer discusses the concept of inner pain in community and growth as the fabric that can weave us together or tear us apart. It can awaken us to the call of service and help, but it can also remind us to close ourselves off for protection from others. These are the types of problems that the elderly will have to overcome. I felt that the distancing of the inner pain in my family, in my experience with my family, because I didn't understand what they were missing. As the elderly lose access to their way of familiar life, we may lack the empathy to understand what is lost. For Gittins, Vanier, and myself, what we see in the world around us is the presence of the stranger, and that the inner pain that they carry will overwhelmingly push us away from helping our understanding of how to help the world. I believe it is a great call, as good a call as any, to step in and prevent any further barriers from being built to wall off the elderly from society. I believe that as a Catholic community and simply as a human community, we have been called into action to prevent any further marginalization of the elderly. One of the first things that community can do is to stop endorsing solely electronic alternatives. As Gittins describes, Jesus altered the roles between host and stranger, and this is the only way to get around the host and guest issue. As community, we should take the time and the effort to grow with the elderly, preserving some aspects of their culture and integrating others into our new communication-oriented world. At first, this may seem difficult to understand why we must do this, and this is because we lack the empathy and understanding of how these people have lived. As Pelzel describes in Ecclesiology, charisms are gifts provided to individuals or collectives that are unique unto them. They bridge the gap between the individual and community, both pragmatically and spiritually. The elderly have charisms of obvious value that we need to remember, retain, understand, and preserve. We should never forget how a group of people lived and acted in life. It would be like losing a part of ourselves. To do so would not be in the name of Christ or God, as we would never learn or grow or have a concept of progress. If we lose sight of the gifts God bestows among certain groups or individuals, we lose access to God as well. By endorsing a system that requires uniformity and conformity silences the people and the gifts that they have. It is an ultimate barrier. In the end, we would become isolated and stagnant as a society, never reflecting or absorbing, only processing new events instead of acting as a cultural repository. I do not believe that we could be facing any greater set of barriers that threaten to completely marginalize the elderly. If we allow this to continue and do nothing, I believe we'll ultimately degenerate into solipsism. Recognizing the importance of the elderly is the specific issue, but this is a symptom of a greater disease. If we continue to embrace our electronic mediums at the sake of all other forms of former culture, then we may forget what it means to reflect. We would become uniform in thought and in practice. We will never have the ability to challenge ourselves as Christians or even as people out in the world. This type of existence threatens everything the church has built in terms of community. We cannot connect on any authentic level with any person solely through electronic correspondence. We would form our own communities, preferring our own tastes rather than those of another. If we can never gather as a community to create, we cease to function as a society and we lose all benefits of charisms that society offers, as well as interaction with God. As we become more isolated, we will feel greater inner pain. As we feel greater inner pain from our isolation, we will push away instead of remembering our calling to help others. It would be an uncontrollable spiral and signify the end of the church's mission. It may be an extreme outlook, but I think it is apparent in our world that something is lost or traded in exchange for the benefits of technology and comforts that they bring. It is important to remember, as Pelzel suggests, the common bond we have as the people of God. We are all equals among each other and ultimately are bonded together through our collective humanity that we each express individually. Recognizing this reminds us that despite any current sweeping notion or trends or fads, we offer something valuable to society. By keeping in touch with the elderly, interacting with them, learning with and through them, we affirm our collective bond. By doing this in person, we can actually experience the Holy Spirit. This is an act of preserving and integrating a culture. By creating this physical connection born out of commitment, learning and time will help to reduce the distance we have between each other. We are then able to preserve, remember, and integrate ideas and customs for everyone to use, celebrating the charisms God has bestowed without forgetting. This physical connection also increases our ability to empathize, as we can now comprehend what is lost. It is important to remember how easy it is to offer help and how hard it is to ask for it. As Christ reminds us, it is only possible to be an agent of social change by disrupting the societal status quo through methods like this. Ultimately, it will be important to help the elderly through online support with prescription drugs, getting access to certain activities and events, and managing long-term care costs. These are all things the church is already doing. What I specifically believe is relevant is actually taking the time to learn, interact, and listen. There is no other way to remove these barriers other than through the active ministry of Christ. We cannot forget people have greater needs than just the physical ones, beyond shelter, food, and water. The mental life we have as Christians in community is the nourishment we need to support us in our mission. Thank you.